Hello and welcome back to the basement. Today we're going to continue work on this Fender P bass restoration / rescue project. What I want to work on now is doing a couple of test pieces just to get a feel for what it's going to take to fix this lower horn. The shape of it is obviously not correct for the instrument. Now I've taken my pick guard and I've traced the pick guard out because knowing the instrument, the horn actually follows very closely, at least in a uniform fashion, the same distance around the pick guard. So what I want to do is I just want to try and cut out this shape, which is, to my approximation, the amount and the piece that is needed. So this shaded area here, I want to try and get that cut out and see how it fits up against this gap in the lower horn. I'm trying to be very careful with this stage of the build because decisions I make here will eventually show through the finish. Now I've considered just cutting this horn off and ordering another body blank or ordering, whatever that's already shaped, basically like a Warmoth body or something like that has the correct shape, or even getting a square bass and cutting the lower horn off of it and grafting it onto this. But I think I want to take the approach of preserving as much of the original instrument as possible and trying to basically piece in a spot right here. Now, what I want to do in this episode is really just try and get a test piece cut for this lower horn and see how it's going to fit. So what I'm going to be working with is just a couple of, near as I can tell, these are poplar blanks, or pieces of poplar pallet wood. These have not been jointed or planed. This is not the right thickness, obviously. I'm just playing around with the shape. What I don't want to do is, I want to follow the grain, at least follow the grain direction. And the other piece of poplar that I have, I'm using poplar because it's similar weight and density to alder, as near as I can tell. I'm going to do my first practice piece on this smaller piece right here. I think that's the right call. So it's onto the bandsaw. Let's see what we can do. All right, so supposed to fit something like that. So what I need to do is I need to find the right piece of wood. So it looks like I've got a bit of an issue here. Obviously this is not fully shaped and sculpted. This is not cut to the final dimension line, as you can tell. So I'm about 1/8 of an inch proud all the way around, so it's not the final fit. So it's proof that I'm pretty sure that I can get this done with the bandsaw that I have. It's not the best bandsaw for cutting body blanks. It will technically do up to 3.5 inches. But again, it's just a Harbor Freight bandsaw, so what do you want? Bottom line is once I get this milled down on the jointer planer to the right thickness, I think we'll be in pretty good shape to fill this horn. This material, I believe, is going to be thick enough to cut the to fill the cavity here if I were to do a big square. So this is about all I have time to do tonight. So I'm going to come back, I'm going to thickness this and square it up to the final thickness to fill the horn, and then I'll be able to start finishing up work on this body and get it prepped for paint, hopefully. But anyway, I'll be back in a day or two. For you guys, it'll feel like seconds. All right, it's a day or two later, and what I want to do is I want to get this piece cut for the lower horn out of the right thickness material to actually graft on to this body. And I'm also going to, while I'm at it, and I've got the jointer and planer running, I want to get some material ready to plug this pickup cavity hole so that we can reroute it and reroute it properly. So let me just see what I can come up with and we can go from there. All right, so let's see how we did here with the cuts, the jointing and planing. And let's see if it's the right thickness to plug that pickup cavity. So I'm reading 0.936 on this piece, which is my first choice. And this is my second choice. This is 0.924. So I did just a hair over 7/8, and I've got that with about a 1/16 of an inch to spare, so I'm actually pretty happy with that. Now let's move on to these two poplar chunks. It's definitely poplar. It's got that kind of green streak to it with a little bit of dark brown, almost blackish to it. It's really evident on the side grain, the end grain here. But this is the thickest chunk, so let's see what the body thickness is that I'm working with. This is 1.601. Obviously I'm too thick here. 2.573. So I need to get it thinner, obviously. I think I'm going to keep it thick, hand plane it down after I get the shape cut. Obviously the thinner the stock would be, the easier it is for me to make the bandsaw cuts. But I've already converted my jointer planer back over to jointer mode, and I don't really feel like taking an inch off using the jointer, or the planer rather. I think that's very, very inefficient. Obviously the best way to do it would be to resaw it, but my little 9-inch bandsaw from Harbor Freight, I don't trust it to cut straight and square by any stretch of the imagination. So either way I'd have to run it back through the planer. So I'm just going to cut it. I'm going to cut it, and then I'll figure out how I'm going to deal with the thickness issue once I'm done. I want this inside edge to fit really, really well. The outside edge I can massage and shape after this piece is jointed in, so that outside edge is not as consequential. I just want to make sure there's enough meat there to shape. But this needs to get closer, in my opinion. It's not far off. It's pretty gosh darn close. So let me start over on that. That is the tough spot. So got a little bit that I can just zip off of here with a handsaw, but like I said, I want to take my time, not rush this, and end up having to start over on this piece. So I will come back and live to fight another day. Alright, so what I need to do now, I need to make this a little bit thinner. It's more material than I really need to be working with. So what I want to do is I want to kind of take the bandsaw, cut this down to at least I don't know, maybe an 1/8 to 1/4 inch over size in terms of thickness from the guitar body. So I have plenty of room to make adjustments if needed. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up having to scrap this and start over, but I want to see what's involved with getting the shape right. And the only reason why I think I'd have to scrap it and start over is because I don't think the grain pattern, the grain direction is going to completely line up. And I'm afraid that that'll show. Now, if I do the sanding sealer and everything else correctly, it probably shouldn't matter. So I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Those of you who have finished many a guitar and know from experience with something like a repair of this nature, just let me know, because I certainly could stand to benefit from somebody else's experience rather than have to make some mistakes and learn things the hard way. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to take my handy dandy caliper and take a measurement here. This is 1.39. So like I said, I'm going to just make it a little bit bigger, about an 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 bigger. Make it 3/16. I'm going to lock it off. Now that I got it locked off, what I can do is I can take this caliper and scribe a line. You can see I already did one earlier, but I want to give myself at least a 1/16 more of wiggle room than I originally was thinking. Alright, so that should be a decent enough line to use the bandsaw to cut to. And what I can then do is take that indentation and make it a little bit easier to see. Just follow that groove with the pencil. Again, I'm not concerned about this being too perfect at this stage, but that's what we're looking at. So that's going to be the waist. This is about 3/16 of an inch thicker than it really needs to be, which is perfect. So now let's get back into bandsaw mode. Well, you can see it's starting to get close. It's not quite there. The grain pattern is not perfectly aligning. There's still a little bit of daylight. I think glue and putty would fill that. So I'm not sure if I want to use this piece or start over. I think one thing I should have done was get my camera angle better. I think one thing I should have done was really perfect the pattern on cardboard before taking it to wood. That would have saved a lot of it would have gotten me closer quicker. So, this is why you do things. You do it to learn. Again, if you look really, really closely, the grain is kind of canted. So if it were to align perfectly and be the same direction as the guitar body, then we have that gap there. But as it stands right now, that's really close. All right, we can see I definitely have a lot to cut off here, and that's fine. I would much rather do it after it's on the body so I can get it perfect. But yeah, I think this is probably pretty close. And the best part is this seam is going to be covered by the pick guard, it looks like, getting it perfectly lined up. So really the only big problem is going to be that tip. So anyway, that's going to be the determining factor, I think, as to whether or not I redo this, is if I can get that gap removed. You can see some daylight there, and I think that should be pretty easily tightened up because I got a little bit further I can go here. Not much, but I think I can get it tightened up. I got plenty of material to work with. So let me play around with it, perfect it, and I'll be back. Okay, and I'm back. It's been a couple of days. I've been working on a side project away from this that's been taking up my shop and my time. I don't know why I decided to do two projects at once, but anyway, I digress. So I'm back, and what I want to do is I want to make a spare for this piece here. I'm not displeased with how this fits. I think it could get better. So what I want to do is I want to take this other piece of poplar that we milled earlier in the episode and try again. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do something I probably should have done in the first place, and that's make a perfect fitting template out of cardboard. So let's make the cardboard template right now. So another thing I think I'm going to do, I think, is instead of having that inner horn shape cut out on this piece, I think what I'm going to do, instead of cutting this out, I think I'm going to leave it flat. I think that'll make it easier to clamp to the body this way, and I don't know, I might need to make another, like a, kind of like this shape here, so I can clamp that way and I can clamp that way. At least that's the idea. Let's see what we can come up with. First and foremost, though, I need to get as accurate as I can with the cut. Now, off camera, I did mill this a little bit with the drum sanding attachment for the drill press, just to make sure I was getting a flat surface to glue to, and there is a little bit of rounding out here. I'm just trying to be careful with how much wood I want to get in. I want at least a 1-inch contact patch all the way around. I got a little bit more work to do there, but other than that, I think it's pretty good. I just want to get a good, nice flat glue surface for the bulk of it, knowing that I'm going to have to fill in these beveled edges with either wood filler or drywall spackle. I like this fit better. I mean, that's nice and tight. So, getting the template marked out is one thing. Getting it translated into wood is another. So, let's start that process now. I know I've got a little bit of an issue here. This will also help me reference the grain, except that this is slightly not wide enough. So this is the scary part for me. The question is to glue or not to glue. That is the question. And if so, which one do I glue? Do I go with tip number one? The benefit of tip piece number one is it kind of curves this horn a little bit more. Downside is, again, the clamping surface isn't ideal, and the grain structure is kind of canted. Again, with lots of sanding sealer, it's probably not going to be noticeable. So with this, I've got the advantage of the grain going the same direction. But I don't have again, I think I've got more on this piece than I actually need. Again, when you put the pick guard in place, it's not evident to me. That I need that much overhang. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, and have to do it with wood filler. This is about a 1/16 of an inch thicker as well, the first piece. Somehow I planed off too much. I still have wiggle room. I've got about 1/8 of an inch, so a 1/16 on both sides to plane flat with the body. So I guess what I'm going to do is whichever one has the tightest fit, meaning the smaller air gap between the horn of the guitar and the piece itself, that's the one that should go in. I wish I had a good way to show you on camera which one that would be. All right, so well, it remains to be seen whether or not this will be a successful glue up. This is definitely the most scary glue up I've done. The first time I've ever actually attached wood to a guitar body in this type of repair situation. So I'm very cautiously optimistic that this will end up being successful. If not, well, we can always knock it off and try again. I hope that's not going to be the case. But anyway, we're going to see on the next episode of The Basement where we tackle the pickup cavity on this 1973 Fender Precision Bass, because that needs to be sorted out just as much as this lower horn does.